to be a police station if there is a difference?
Commissioners, the CSC, as I explained yesterday, is the Community Service Center or the charge office. And that's the...
I sometimes wonder why these names have been changed, because they serve to confuse us.
And that's the heartbeat of the police station. That's where all the activities start, and that is where the register is kept to enter exhibits into. So it's part of the police station, to answer Advocate Selu.
Oh, okay. So it's part of the police station. So if I say the SAP 13 is found at a police station, that would be inclusive of a CSC?
Indeed, Commissioners.
Oh. And then paragraph 4, you said you called them paragraphs. Please read sub 4 into the record. For
Paragraph,
sub 4.
Oh, sub 4.
Yes.
All property and exhibits seized must be entered in the SAP 13 register of the relevant police station where the crime was committed or where the property was found, and then transferred to the relevant unit and entered in the SAP 13 of the relevant unit.
A couple of questions from me on that. How should we understand the requirement that all property and exhibits seized must be entered into the SAP 13 register of the relevant police station where the crime was committed? Does that mean each and every item must be registered? Does that mean a generic description of the exhibit must be given? How should the Commission interpret that requirement?
Commissioners, it's expected of police officers entering exhibits into the SAP 13 to be specific and complete. It means that exhibit seal numbers must, for instance, be entered. If there's a serial number on exhibits, that needs to be entered. If it's cash that's being handed in, the serial numbers of the cash need to be entered. So it needs to be a very comprehensive and complete entry that's being made there.
And if we then take it to the second, what I'll call the second SAP 13 register, which is the receiving police station, must the same exercise be undertaken?
That is correct, Commissioners. That's when exhibits are transferred to another station.
Okay. Now then, I would like us to go to paragraph 7, as you are helping us understand.
Maybe before you do that, Ms. Sulu,
yes,
just to clear this. General, where it says to the relevant unit, in this case, the relevant unit would have been the DPCI, in the case that we are dealing with.
That is correct, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloyi. To your response to Commissioner Baloyi's question, I would like you to flag it, because as we work through this document, we will have to revisit that answer for clarity. Okay? But in the meantime, I would like us to then go to paragraph 7 at page 74. And at paragraph 7, which is headed Property in Temporary Storage Facilities in the CSC, I take it then police station, as you explained. And it requires that all property entered in the SAPS 13 must be locked in a temporary storage facility at CSC, where they must be kept safely until handed over to the station commander or exhibit official. In the case of the Port Shepstone seizure and the SAP entry at Isipingo, who would have at the time been the exhibit official?
Warrant Officer Perumal, Commissioners.
So Warrant Officer Perumal is our exhibit official.
That's correct, Commissioners.
Then I invite us to paragraph 8. You had touched on this briefly. Paragraph 8 regulates the transfer of exhibits from one police station to another. Part 1 or sub 1 of paragraph 8, it states that the transfer document SAP 13 sub G is completed by the sub 13 official in all instances where exhibits are transferred from one police station to another or between subs 13 stores. Would it be logical for us to expect to obtain an SAP 13 sub G from Isipingo Police Station in regard to the Port Shepstone seizure?
That's correct, Commissioners, because it's a requirement.
And part 2 deals with the completion of their transfer document. Is this a separate document from the SAP 13 book that is completed? Is it a standalone document, or is it part of the SAP 13, I'll call it a book, where various entries are made? What exactly is a transfer document?
Commissioners, it is a separate document. It does not form part of the actual register where the exhibits are entered into.
So when we then turn to sub 3, sub 3, as I understand it, lists the information that must be provided in this separate document that is called the transfer document. Am I correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
And at sub 5, a similar requirement, but this time for the receiving station. So sub 3 regulates the requirement for a transfer document by the transferring station. In our instance, in this particular case, that would be Isipingo Police Station. Am I correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Sub 5 regulates the requirements for a transfer document by the receiving station. Is that correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
So, and basically the requirements are the same. Have you said you haven't seen a separate, this transfer document. Have you seen any document that provides the detail required in sub 3? And
No.
I'm not calling it a transfer document for a moment, but any document that has captured the requirements of sub 3A to I.
No, I'm not aware of any such documents, Commissioners.
And similarly then, am I correct to assume that you haven't seen in respect of a document contemplated in sub 5, A to H?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Are you able to express a view then as to the correctness of or compliance of the transfer of these exhibits from Isipingo to Port Shepstone?
There was non-compliance, Commissioners.
Can I try to understand this? In sub 5, what would be the receiving station on the facts of what we are dealing with?
Commissioners, one of two, Port Shepstone Police Station or the DPCI SAP 13 in Port Shepstone.
But was there a transfer to Port Shepstone Police Station?
I believe we are coming to that, Commissioners, but indeed it went to Port Shepstone Police Station and not to the SAP 13 of the Serious Organized Crime Unit at Port Shepstone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. And perhaps while we are here, there is what is formally called the Port Shepstone Police Station. Is that correct?
That's
There
correct.
is a police station in Port Shepstone.
That's correct, Commissioners.
And that is different from the Port Shepstone DPCI offices, is that not so?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Where what we know happened here is that the transfer, quote unquote, was from Isipingo Police Station to Port Shepstone offices. And that is where they were stored on the 22nd of June, 2022.
Indeed, Commissioners.
Then, if I could invite us then to overleaf at page 60 at paragraph 9. This deals with property dealt with by experts. And I'm interested in sub 1 of that paragraph. It reads, specialized units.
Sorry, you
So-
send him back to 60, 70, 76.
76, did I say 60?
Yes, he was going back to 60.
Oh, I do apologize. I guess I just saw the 6 and then added 76 for the record, 76.
Just a very brief observation. At 8.5, is there no need for the description of the exhibits? I see no reference to that there. Of course, you can't change the form, but I'm just asking out of interest. There is reference to that under 383, H, description of exhibits. I would have thought that the person receiving there should be an entry that says description of exhibits again to correspond with what the transferor says.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Yes. You might want to raise that with the relevant sections of subs. Yeah.
Thank you for that observation, Chairperson.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I had then directed us to page 76. And we are dealing with paragraph 9. The first subparagraph, sub 1. And it reads, specialized units resorting under the Directorate of Priority Crime Investigations, DPCI, and the Division Forensic Services may, with the consent of the Divisional Commissioner or Head, DPCI, keep separate SAP 13 registers to record exhibits. Do you see where I'm reading?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Is the Port Shepstone, are the Port Shepstone DPCI offices an entity contemplated in sub 1? Or is that something completely different?
Commissioners, that will only be an approved SAP 13 if it was approved by the national head of the DPCI. I do not have knowledge on
Sorry,
whether.
before you go further, I'm trying to understand, before we get to the question of the SAP 13. This subparagraph speaks of specialized units resorting under the Directorate of Priority Crime Investigations, DPCI, and the Division Forensic Services. Now, my question is, Port Shepstone office, DPCI offices, are they the specialized service units that are referred to in this subparagraph?
Indeed, Commissioners.
And then taking it further, that subparagraph tells us that then the DPCI offices in Port Shepstone may keep a separate SAP register, 13 register, to record exhibits with the consent of the divisional head, the divisional commissioner or divisional head, DPCI. The divisional head would, in trying to understand the ranking, would that be the position, who's the divisional commissioner? Perhaps let me ask that.
Well, from my reading of this paragraph, Commissioners, the divisional commissioner referred to here is the divisional commissioner for forensic services.
Yes.
And then on the part of the DPCI, it is the national head of the DPCI that can approve such a SAP 13 facility or register to be kept.
So in the absence of an approval such as contemplated in sub 1, Port Shepstone DPCI offices cannot retain a sub 13 register.
That's
that not
correct.
correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
To your knowledge, have the offices, and that's the Port Shepstone offices, ever been approved to retain such a register?
I do not have knowledge of that, Commissioners.
Now, you recall that Commissioner Kumalo asked you, I'll take a step back to page 75, about the receiving station. And your response, or I think it was Commissioner Balo, your response was that would have been Port Shepstone Police Station. Now we know that the seized cargo was taken to Port Shepstone office, DPCI offices. You inform the commissioners that you are not aware of the offices having been cleared or approved to retain an SAP 13 register. If that's where they went, why then do you conclude that the receiving station in this instance, as in paragraph 8, sub 5, was Port Shepstone Police Station? These are two separate places.
Commissioners,
go ahead.
after the exhibits was booked in and booked out at Isipingu on the 22nd of June 2021, the officers took the exhibits to the Serious Organized Crime Unit Port Shepstone, stored it there in the walk-in safe. And then only on a later date, on the 24th of June, the exhibits were entered into the SAP 13 at Port Shepstone SAPS, whilst it was still, until the burglary and theft, in the walk-in safe in Port Shepstone Organized Crime Unit.
So if I understand you correctly, the exhibits were physically taken to Port Shepstone offices. 2 days later, they were entered into the Port Shepstone Police Station SAP 13. Am I understanding you correctly?
That's correct, Commissioners.
If Port Shepstone Police Station was intended as the receiving station, was it not required, therefore, to have taken control of the exhibits before they are entered into the SAP 13 at the police station in Port Shepstone?
That's correct, Commissioners.
But we know that it happened. Do you know whether there was ever a transfer, however temporary, from the DPCI Port Shepstone offices to the police station in Port Shepstone to complete the exercise, the SAP 13 exercise as the receiving station? Do you know?
I'm not aware of such, Commissioners.
Okay. Now, our SAP 13s are now available. Commissioners, there are two documents that have been presented before you. These will be
Handwritten.
handwritten, yes. They're actually completed forms. There are two of them. These are marked, paginated 193 and 194 as exhibits. There'll be exhibit CJC 193 and CJC 194 respectively. The small one is 193.
193.
193 is the
smaller
small
one.
For now, I'll call them the small one until the general confirms what they are.
I always rely on the attorneys to
Yes.
sort that out for
Indeed.
years. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, Chair, it shall be done. It was for purposes of the record. Yes, thank you. General, you have received the two documents that They've just been distributed now, I referred to, correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
I would like us to turn our attention to the first. At the top right corner, it is written in manuscript A16. You see that document?
That's correct, Commissioners.
What is it's a two-page document. What is this document?
Commissioners, it is a copy of the SAP 13 at Isipingo Police Station.
Now, we know from evidence tendered thus far that this seizure was registered, was booked in, and subsequently booked out at Isipingo Police Station. Is this the SAP 13 that would have reflected that book-in, book-out process?
That's correct, Commissioners.
If you look at the first page of that document, there is an entry 373 dated 22/06/2021. And in the second column, it indicates a DPCI inquiry number, and then it provides a description. Do you know what that entry is?
Advocate Celio, do you refer to column 3, the entry?
The
Or column
second
2?
entry on the page, the first seems to be headed 323, item, whatever, entry 372. The second is entry 373.
373. Oh,
Yes,
yes,
373. Rather dyslexic this morning, apologies. Do you see where I am, General?
In column 2, Commissioners, that DPCI inquiry number, it refers to the inquiry file under which this investigation was conducted.
And that was as at the date reflected in the first column, 22/06/2021.
That's correct, Commissioners.
I then want us to move to the third column. And if you could read, if you can make out what's written there, if you could read what's written in this SAP 13.
Commissioners, it is written a 1 and then a bracket, so it's for item 1, and it's just reflecting 541, and then in brackets 541, multiply 1 kilogram brick containing powder suspected to be cocaine.
And again, as you made a correction yesterday, it should have been, there should have been each somewhere there, because now this suggests that all of this is 1 kg. Yeah.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. And I think you identified this as the Isipingo SAP 30 in this document.
That's correct, Commissioners.
When one looks at this document, I do not see any further description as, I think, contemplated by the National Instruction 8 of 2017, that each exhibit must be individually identified in the receiving. No, in the first station where the crime is committed when they enter into the SAP 13. That's the totality of the description of the exhibits. It's inconsistent with the response you gave that each single piece of exhibit has to be individually listed in the SAP 13.
And described.
And described.
Yeah, you would, for instance, if it was properly done, I would have expected to see that there would have been multiple entries, Commissioners, first and foremost. Second to that, there would have been an indication to say 1 forensic exhibit seal bag with seal number 12345 containing 20 suspected bricks of cocaine. And that will complete that entry. And then the second and the third and the fourth. And then all other additional exhibits that might have been seized from a crime scene.
And
What about the description of the containers? I mean, you can't just say a brick. Because how does that work? My understanding was that they were wrapped in black or some other form of, because looking at this, it's so easy to swap it for something else, and nobody would know that the exhibits have been swapped for something else. Shouldn't the description of the containers also say, I'm just looking at Chair's constitution. Chair is a big fan of the constitution. Its color is black, and so the photos that we saw yesterday, shouldn't that be part of the description as well?
Indeed, Commissioners. That's why I say all other exhibits ceased from the crime scene. And these are exhibits. The wrappings, the bags in which it was, the additional wrapping around that bags with the carry handles, all of those was then supposed to, after it was, the cocaine was removed from those bags, to also form part of the list of exhibits.
Yeah, I think look at the screen.
That's
what I
correct.
had in mind. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So then in response to Commissioner Khumalo's question, each one of those bricks ought to have been listed in this Isipingo SAP 13 and fully described.
Well, since almost all of them are similar, it's
Yes.
basically two types of packaging.
Yes.
Commissioners, that's why I indicated it gets supposed to be packaged correctly at the crime scene, and then you give an explanation of the exhibits that's handed in. So it serves no purpose to go and describe each and every block, because it will be 541 of similar entries. It obviously needs to speak to the chain of custody. And that's why it's important that the seal numbers in which 20 or 15 or 10 blocks are packaged are properly reflected in the register. As well as, and you can see there on the top left-hand side of the photo, that black bags, all of that, it's still exhibits. And it needs to be also sealed and properly recorded in the applicable register.
And I think your testimony yesterday was, it is at this juncture, when they are entered into the SAP 13, that they must be sealed in proper forensic evidence bags.
Before you
Yes, Chair.
you deal with it, now that you've taken us back to the photographs, Ms. Sigels Ncube promised to give these photographs and maybe something else as well, I'm not sure now, to give them exhibit numbers. Please do not forget that.
No, indeed, I understand that is
Yes.
underway. And the exhibit number, the two exhibit numbers we provided, CJC 193, 194, have already taken the pictures into consideration.
Okay.
Yes, definitely, Chair.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'd say, my General, yesterday I understood you to have testified that at the crime scene, the exhibits must be, and at the bookings police station, they must be entered into the SAP 13 register and placed at the same time in proper evidence bags, sealed and marked and duly marked. Did I understand you correctly?
That is at the crime scene, if conditions permit, obviously, as per the directive, Commissioners.
At the crime scene.
At the crime scene.
So we know that it didn't happen at the crime scene. Instead, they were taken to the Isipingo police station. And that picture we looked at were the exhibits as they were at the Isipingo police station. That is the time they were entered into the SAP 13. Am I correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Now, I want to understand whether after the entry into the SAP 13, is it at this juncture they must be placed in evidence bags and sealed?
No, this was already at the police station. So if they omitted to do it at the crime scene, at the container, at least there was a second bite at the cherry where they could have conducted still proper crime scene management. And even here, it was not done, Commissioners.
So,
Sorry.
yes.
General, are you saying even here at Sipingo, they should, having failed to do it at the crime scene, at this point now at the police station, they should have put them in bags?
Indeed, Commissioner, although on face value what I observed there is that the exhibits were already contaminated, unless the colleagues had gloves on. But it could still have been photographed properly by LCRC, as well as properly sealed in exhibit seal bags. And the exhibits could have been properly reflected in the SAP 13 register. There was no need to just take the exhibits as it was in that state from Isipingo to Port Shepstone, because anything can happen along the way. Some of the exhibits can go missing. And the chain of custody is really not at the required standard where we expect detectives to function at.
Thank you, General. So at least we know from, and if the crime scene had been properly handled, then the exhibits in their respective evidence bags, sealed, duly sealed and marked, would have then been entered into the SAP 13 at Isipingo.
Indeed, Commissioners.
And now we know it didn't happen here, at least if this SAP 13 is to be believed.
That's correct, Commissioners.
Then on the same document, if you go over leaf, there are some entries made there. I just want you to explain to me. I read the first column under 4 as a member who booked these exhibits at Sipingo and references the CHC container at 14 Avenue East. That's the Durban Harbour, correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
And it is duly signed for. What I'm interested in is the 5th column, the entry in the 5th column. You recall we're having a conversation on regarding the book-in, book-out process. That requires a registration in the first police station, SAP 13, and immediately booked out to another police station where an SAP 13 would be completed. I'm correct? That is the general process.
That's correct, Commissioners.
And now we have dealt with the issue of the transfer documents to take account of that movement from the one police station to another police station. Am I correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Now, yesterday you referenced book in, book out. Must that strictly be from police station to police station, or can it be booked out for other purposes?
The exhibits can obviously and must be booked out to be submitted to the Forensic Science Laboratory, Commissioners. So that is also a legitimate reason.
Okay. And if we then look at column 5, the entry there, the second one, I think the book sort of reads across. Highlighted in green and yellow. That is the continuation of the entry regarding these exhibits, you confirm?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Now, if I am reading this properly at column 5, it reads, items taken for analysis and given the date 2021-06-2022. I read that to be the book out process that you spoke of after the book in.
That's correct, Commissioners. That's what column 5 is created for.
And I see that happened, it confirms it happened on the 22nd of June 2021, which is the same day as the date of seizure.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
it reflects, obviously taken for analysis. on
I'm
that
interested
date.
in the date for the moment, General.
Yes, that's the date of the seizure.
Now, my challenge is, we know after the book out, they went to Port Shepstone DPCI offices. This is the reason provided here is items taken for analysis. Was analysis to be done at the Port Shepstone DPCI offices, or am I misreading what's here?
Commissioners, perhaps just two things that I need to comment on. First and foremost, this entry by one of the detectives that was part of the search and seizure operation, referred to in column 5, was supposed to be in column 6, not in column 5. Column 5 is for the station commander or the SAP 13 clerk to acknowledge receipt of the exhibits. That's the first aspect. The second aspect is that clearly this entry is a false entry because the exhibits was never taken for analysis on that date. It's completely misleading because the exhibits went from Isipingo to Port Shepstone and it was never submitted for analysis as depicted here.
Not on that date and not ever.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Thank you, General. Let's then turn to the second document that was distributed today. That will be CJC 194 for the record. If you could briefly inform the commissioners what this document is.
Commissioners, the second document on the top right-hand corner reflects as A3 is a copy of the SAP 13 register of Port Shepstone SAPS, the police station.
And I think earlier you had indicated, and I think that the document bears you out, that these entries were made 2 days after the seizure and after the cargo had been locked up at the Port Shepstone offices. Did I understand you correctly?
That's correct, Commissioners. According to the document, column 1, it's reflected there 2021-06-24, and the reference number at Port Shepstone was 883 for that specific calendar year.
Now, who would bear responsibility for these entries in this document?
Commissioners, the exhibits was entered by Warrant Officer Mpangase.
But if I understood it, Warrant Officer Mpangase is one of the investigating officers. Should the SAP entry not be countersigned by the exhibit official, the official who is responsible for the exhibits at the police station?
Commissioners, if we can perhaps go to the last page
Yes.
of this exhibit. In column 4 under paragraph 4.5, it indicates the signature of Community Service Center member who receives exhibits or the property. And there is a different signature affixed to that column under 4.5 after Warrant Officer Mpangase entered the exhibits into the register.
Indeed. So I'm saying it is that signature, whoever it belongs to, is that person who then becomes the exhibit official and is responsible for these exhibits from that point.
That's correct, Commissioners, but here we have to also take into consideration, again, paragraph 6.1, where Warrant Officer Mpangase, again on the 24th, booked out the exhibits.
Apologies, General, you are ahead of us. We will get to that point. Okay. You recall that we dealt with in terms of the instruction note, the transferring station and the receiving station requirements, and the transfer documents. Now, you explained that when they are registered in the receiving police station, that police station takes responsibility for the exhibits, and they are entered into that police station's SAP 13. And this is what this document purports to be the Port Shepstone Police Station SAP 13. Am I correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
And my question therefore is, if the commissioners were to go to Port Shepstone Police Station to establish who was the official responsible for receiving these exhibits, there has to be somebody identifiable to say, I received them and I signed the SAP 13 form. Am I correct? Is my understanding
That's correct. That's how it's supposed to be working.
Now, from the document before us, are we able to determine who the receiving official at the Port Shepstone Police Station was?
I cannot identify from this document, Commissioners.
And as you rightly say, at the end of that document, just under 4.5, is a signature with no name, no, is it a person, a member number, no date,
No rank.
no rank. Do you have any comments to what we are confronted with?
Well, Commissioners, from a reading of the document, it's clear that this was just an entry into the register at this police station to have a reference number for the exhibits that's been kept at Port Shepstone. According to my knowledge, the actual exhibits was not taken out of the walk-in safe at the unit, taken to Port Shepstone, booked in there, booked out, and taken back again. This is just a paper exercise that was performed here. And that is why Warrant Officer Mpangase immediately again, or directly after he entered it here, on the same date, made the entry, apparently he made the entry under paragraph 6, that the exhibits is taken for investigation.
Taken from the Port Shepstone Police Station in 6.1.
Yes, it reflects items 3.1 to 3.31 taken for investigation. Obviously then from the police station, because the entry is made at Port Shepstone Police Station. So it's incorrect, it's a false entry.
We will get to you say it's Warrant Officer Mpangase's entries under 6.1. I'm still interested in what was happening to record these exhibits as received by Port Shepstone Police Station. As you sit there in the position that you are in, must somebody be held accountable for this entry besides Warrant Officer Mpangase, who at least signs here as the person handing them in? Must the purported receiving person be held responsible and answerable to what exactly was happening here?
Commissioners, it's a difficult question. I believe that if that individual can be identified, it will be prudent to perhaps get a version from that official in terms of what transpired here before I can comment on whether that person needs to be held responsible. I do not know what transpired there.
I'll put it differently. Somebody purported to have received these. You testified earlier that you know that they never left the DPCI offices in Port Shepstone. Is that a concern to you that you are confronted with an entry such as this in circumstances where somebody in Port Shepstone Police Station purports to be receiving something that never left the DPCI offices in the first place?
Indeed, Commissioners, because it is a misrepresentation.
Now, that person, would I be correct to conclude that based on what is written here, this person confirms that these exhibits were in fact cocaine? You remember when they left Isipingo, they are noted as suspected to be cocaine. The receiving, if we go to the first document, the Isipingo SAP 13, says 541 by 1 kg brick containing powder suspected to be cocaine. You confirm that, right?
That's correct, Commissioner.
And we know overleaf in that, the entry was that these were taken for analysis.
That's
And you
correct.
testified that, to your knowledge, no analysis was conducted.
That's correct, Commissioners.
2 days later now, Port Shepstone Police Station accepts them as bricks of powder. Also, my apologies, it still says suspected to be cocaine. I misread that. My question is there any evidence, objective, independent evidence, that the exhibits entered into Isipingo SAP 13 are the same that are now registered here at the Port Shepstone Police Station? Is there any independent evidence that the Commission can turn to? I think you said that Isipingo is about more than 100 kilometers from Port Shepstone.
Port Shepstone, that's correct, Commissioner.
So what must we look to satisfy ourselves that what was taken, what was registered as Isipingo is indeed what is now registered at Port Shepstone Police Station?
There's no independent corroboration to come to the conclusion that what was entered in Isipingo is now entered at Port Shepstone, Commissioners.
Now, are you in a position to express an opinion as now regards the conduct of Warrant Officer Mpangase, who, as you indicated under column 6, states that these items were taken for investigation? Do you have a view to express on that?
Commissioner, even that is a misrepresentation. If it was booked out for investigation, there was no investigation to be done on the exhibits except for the work to be done by FSL. So it was supposed to read, taken then for submission to FSL. That's what I would have suspected, not for investigation, because as a detective at organized crime, the warrant, unfortunately, cannot determine whether it's cocaine or not. So that's a misrepresentation.
I'm sure you meant expected and not suspected.
Expected.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner.